Now, the most difficult thing for people is when they discover the depth of the deception that we're facing in the world today, just how all-pervasive this matrix is and just what the matrix is. You know, what really holds this whole system in place? It's simply our belief that the system is real and our belief in words that are written down on paper. I mean, the system is essentially held in place by magic. But if you say that to people, they think you're crazy because they don't believe in magic, because they don't know what magic is. And yet magic appears all around them every day. That's what holds the system together. It's held together purely due to people's belief that the system is real. And this belief is held together by people's belief in the legal system. And this is held together in turn by people's belief in the written word. This is how the magic works. This is how the spells work. All of the secret codes and all of the numbers that they put in there, the magic that it creates, all of the symbolism that they put everywhere. There's a certain magic that is created by all of this stuff, which they use to control us. And see, what they do, folks, is they teach you to think in language. Once you're taught to spell and you're taught to view words as something that is written down, then the words have a power over you. But it's a spell, it's a glamour. That's why they call it spelling. And most people don't realize that when they are spelling, they are casting spells. You see, Black's Law, the legal book, it's not really a book of law. It's essentially a grimoire. It's a book of spells. They can write down all of these rules on paper and you suddenly believe they apply to you, but only because you can spell. Only because the spells are holding you in place by your belief in this written language. A lot of language, a lot of ancient languages, you'll find languages such as Hebrew, Aramaic, Sanskrit, even Chinese. These types of languages are not spelled. You'll find that there is a symbol which will convey an entire word. And the symbol may convey a different word if used in conjunction with different symbols, such as Hebrew. There's like 6 meanings for each letter, but each letter is an actual word. It's not a language that is spelled. Another interesting thing about English is that English is a direct phonetic reversal of Hebrew. So we're basically all speaking backwards when we speak English. We're speaking sounds that are completely unnatural to the natural rhythms and natural sounds, but it is in the spelling and the symbolism that is contained within the language that the mental and psychological control grid is constructed.
Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Inspired live stream. It is Thursday, March 28th, 2024. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. And yes, we could say we are winning. Let's put that in there as a soft slide into this motto. Thank you for being with us on Rumble, on X, and here on YouTube. It's always wonderful to see you. We just had a conversation with a dear friend of ours. You might know her, Dr. Northrup, Dr. Christiane Northrup, wonderful, beautiful doctor, human being, truth speaker, all of the above. And part of that conversation always is, but also was today, is the incredible depth of what we're collectively discovering. When we look, and today we're going to look at language, at words. We're going to look at the meaning of words, how the meaning has changed, and how we use words every single day that means something different than we think they mean, and how then we are, if we're not aware of this, if we're not conscious of it, we are literally putting ourselves under a continual spell. So often we just believe that mind control and programming comes through the media. It comes through various other means that they have created, but it was programmed into the current modern version of English. And as a matter of fact, some people and researchers allege that the whole English language was simply created for this particular purpose. What I want to convey as a concept before we go deeper into the words, and this is an introduction for many, and for others, they've already seen this, heard this, and are grasping the concept. So this is more of an introduction, if you will. But as a overview, as a general statement, our society and everything that falls under sort of the umbrella of society, which is just a collective system, everywhere you look, you will see that what appears on the surface is completely inverted from what the truth is. So there has to be a calmness about it. You have to remain calm, because as wherever you go deep, you will uncover it's completely different than we thought it is. And it was set up for a different reason. And so everywhere you look, you will find hidden truths. And I want to start by thanking Max Egan, who's been in our channel many times. He's a great truth speaker and a lot of insight into many subjects, just a great researcher guy. But also another person that we're going to feature here in a clip in a moment, Jordan Maxwell. He passed on not too long ago. He was a well of knowledge and has shared that knowledge, over the decades with many, many people. And as a matter of fact, he's probably the foundation of inspiration for many people that have gone deeper into subjects, the occult, the religions, the words, the law, all of that. We aim to talk about it in a way that is comprehensible, so that people can actually walk away and start with an ignited spark. So let's listen to this clip here, 5 or so minutes with Jordan Maxwell. Very, very eye-opening about words, about language, and what they really mean in the context.
To start doing your homework and understanding words. If you put an S in front of words, it becomes swords. And that's what words are. They're cutting. They can cause you great trouble. Humans are word-controlled creatures. There's a Roman maximum in law that says, "For he that would be deceived, let him." Simply meaning, if you are so ignorant as to be deceived, then that's your business, that's your problem. You use certain words, and when those words are used in a court, they don't mean the same thing at all. Why is it that you have to go to court? People are always concerned about going to court. You go to court because you play basketball and tennis on a court. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. Why? Because that's what it is. It's a racket. And make no mistake, they do not pick words by chance. These words are very serious. The judge, that we are told, rules from the bench. The word bench in Latin is a bank. Therefore, the judge rules for the bank. Where do you find banks? You find banks on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the current, see, the juice. Consequently, your money is currency because it's the flow, the cash flow. When a ship pulls into harbor, it parks at the dock and it ties off at the dock. The captain has to provide for the port authorities a certificate of manifest, because yesterday the ship was not here. But this morning the ship pulled in, so it has manifested. The ship is sitting in its berth. Wherever a ship sits when it docks is called its berth. She sits in her berth, berthing a ship. When you were born, your mother's water broke. And when your mother's water broke, you came out. And this is why you have to have a birth certificate, because you are a maritime admiralty product under international law. You are considered, your body is considered a maritime admiralty product. Your mother delivered you. This is why if you go to Sears and buy a refrigerator, they will ship it to you. They will deliver it. And that's why you were in your delivery room. Your mother was delivering a product. Maritime admiralty. You came down your mother's birth canal Sometimes they're stillborn, so consequently you've lost money on that one. Therefore you have to have a death certificate, and it's always signed by the doc. The doc has to sign your birth certificate and your death certificate. All of these words and terms are maritime admiralty banking words. And therefore, if you understand lawyers and judges and courts and government are all under international maritime admiralty law. All religions, all churches in the world operate under maritime law. This is why all churches are divided into denominations, like 20s and 50s and 100s. In 1868, there was a corporation founded. The founders referred to it as the United States Corporation. And they stipulated that anybody who would be a member of that corporation or work for that corporation would be called not an employee, but a citizen. So today, if you are asked, are you a citizen of the United States? What you think you're being asked is, are you lawfully in this country to do business? That's not lawfully what's being asked. They didn't ask if you were in America lawfully. They ask you a specific question. Are you, of your own volition, out of your own mouth, testifying that you are a citizen of the United States? Because in that way, citizen of the United States means you are an employee of a foreign corporation operating on international maritime law. So today, the President of the United States is the President of a privately owned company. The company is called United States. And the word president is always a word that is used in corporate law. Banks have presidents. All companies have presidents. So there's a corporation called United States, privately owned, and it has a president.
It's one of the famous Jordan Maxwell clips that's been out there for a very long time. And as I said, he's definitely someone in his body of work that you can find online that will go deeper into the language, the law. And this is, you know, I didn't want to go too deep into the whole law thing where you have maritime law, you have the law of the land, you have common law, you have the UCC. There's so much in there. But the idea is, and here's where I want to speak to the community that's watching this, that has been aware of this. We have to consider that every day there are new people joining us, and they come because they have maybe a spiritual awakening, and then they can perceive truth now better. They feel it better. They have this a heightened awareness. And we are presenting maybe things that we've all known for a very long time, but now we're helping them to see these things. It's very interesting. You know, if somebody somebody goes to court, you know, I remember going through all these scenarios and having experienced them myself, and then the judge reads you the charge, right? The charge. What is a charge, right? What is it in connection with the ship? Reads the charge. And then the judge says, after he reads or she reads the charge, says, do you understand? And you think, oh, that means, did I comprehend what I just heard? Am I aware of what this means? And that's not what they're saying. It's, do you stand under? Do you acknowledge the authority of this proceeding here under whatever law is in place? And it usually is maritime law. The point of this is not merely to see what language does in law or in the economy with government, but what language does, more importantly so, to our subconscious. How the language that we use and the words that we use have an effect that we might not be aware of. And I want to show you something, how words create a spell or can create a spell, what that really means. And this is source from Laurel Irisha, and she does word magic and explains this if you want to go deeper into it. But I just want to, this is her example. Well, it's not really her example. Others have said this before her, but she put this in this particular context. And I'm just going to go through this, over this with you. We awake each morning and go off during the weekdays to earn the living at various jobs and undertakings until we come to the weekend. You could say this, and people will say, yeah, that's how it goes. That's what we do, right? And there's not really much about it, right? This is just kind of everyday societal life. But let's look at the words a little closer. And is this really saying what we think it is saying? Okay, let's look at this here. Again, it seems perfectly acceptable, right? But according to Laurel Arisha, more people die on a Monday between 6 and 9 in the morning than any other time of the week. Now, honestly, I couldn't find the statistic that specifically confirmed this, but let's just go with it for a moment. What would that mean and why? Well, maybe there is something here that we aren't seeing on the surface here. Awake or awake? Awake is a funeral party for the dead. That is what awake, when somebody dies and you are being made aware of it. You know, an invitation always sounds like it's kind of morbid, you'd think, but let's say you're invited to awake. We say we are awake, right? We use the awakening, but the word wake is a funeral party for the dead. Now, what else? Mourning is a state you're in when you attend a wake. And you would have to be in a weekdays to earn the living, since urns are for the ashes of the dead. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Mourning. Mourning is a state of sadness when you mourn the loss of someone. Weekdays. Weekdays. And we earn a living. It's very interesting if you think that phonetically, acoustically speaking, these words sound exactly the same. Now, here is where sort of the psychological subconscious aspect comes in. Is that when you aren't aware of these things, and when you just unconsciously use all kinds of words, and we're going to get into more words, by the way, you are having two experiences. The one thing is, with your conscious mind, you think you are saying and meaning what you are saying, but your subconscious has a program that runs all on its own, and it does not understand, for example, the word not. So if you say, I am not an addict, what you're really saying to your subconscious mind is, I am an addict. That's what your subconscious mind understands. When you say morning, weekdays, because you understand, because you have the comprehension level that these words mean different things in different contexts, now all of a sudden you have a conflicted meaning inside of you, and this is really truly happening. It changes when you become aware of it. Everything that you become aware of changes because of awareness. Now you can redirect meaning. But with the English language, it is very challenging because it was designed, at least the more you study it, the more you see that it was designed that words sound phonetically. So the way that we say them, they sound the same, but they can mean completely different things in a different context. Okay, let's move on here. We call our jobs undertakings. Job itself is a Hebrew word for persecuted. And what we get at the end of the perverse bargain with life is the weekend of the deal, as we become progressively weakened ourselves. So we go about and we work, we do a job, the persecuted ones do a job during the weekdays, and then we are weakened in the weekend, on the weekend, and then we wake up Monday morning. We're in mourning as we awake. You see, and this is, you would, if this is your first contact with this concept, you would think that I'm simply making stuff up. But you can measure the frequency of words. And what we're beginning to learn is that those who created this actually did that. This isn't an accident. This is probably the most important piece of this information. Just like it isn't an accident, the way language has been changed over the last decades, right? When we obviously reverse and pervert the meaning of a word, like when we say, this is crazy, you know, somebody bites, goes to a new restaurant, bites into a burger and goes, oh, this is crazy. And they mean this is really good. This is insanely good, right? But what did the words really mean? Oh my God, that concert was sick. And they're trying to say it was great. But do you see how we are being manipulated to use language that constantly brings back insane, crazy, sick? These words are everywhere. They're, and now the language changes so fast and words are combined and being made up. And all of these words have actually inherently negative and inherently detrimental meanings for us. And the words that we use, especially when we're not aware, greatly affect us. They affect our well-being. They affect our psyche. They affect our health. They affect our relationships, right? So every time, and this happens more with younger people than it happens with older people, but every time somebody says this was sick and they want to say this was good, I give them a plethora of words. Was it interesting? Was it amazing? Was it great? Was it informative? Was it joyful? Was it tasty? Was it pleasant? We have to introduce positive words into the language again. They're very much removed, right? We have gaslighting. We have, of course, then we have words that are invented, like woke, right? We have perversion of meaning. Today, the most restrictive group, political group, if you will, or people that identify with a certain political stream, the most restrictive ones today in our Western societies are the liberals. But what does liberal mean? Now think about it. Go and think what liberal means, and it points to autonomous. What does autonomous mean? But these words are all being inverted. So today, if you want to look at who is mostly pushing for groupthink, for big corporations and government to dictate things to people, who is calling for stricter and stricter laws, who wants to tell you what you can or cannot say, who wants to tell you how you need to address them, they call themselves liberals. But the word liberal means free. Okay, we can debate about that, but really in its root, right? But there's nothing free about it. There's nothing free about the mindset. And so you can take other words, progressive and conservative, and they're just being constantly twisted. The problem with that is that if you are today in your 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, doesn't matter, you have a memory of when the word was used in its proper context. Now it's being weaponized. But why? You know why? Because you want to change society in a certain direction, but you don't want to lose the classical liberals, the people, for example, that are subscribing to the Democrat Party in the United States. They were liberals in the 50s and 60s and 70s, maybe, and they were liberals in the true sense of the word. Now they're liberals by association because they've always been that. And they will go along with something because they believe it is still that, but the meaning of the words has been changed. This is not accidental. This doesn't happen by natural cultural progression. There's no reason in a natural cultural progression for the meaning of a word to be completely inverted. This is done by design. People sit there and they determine how they're going to label something and brand something. Branding, think about branding. We today only think it means assigning meaning to something. You know, when companies out there, they brand their things. What does that mean? Branding was when you put your brand, when you put your stamp on your cattle so you could identify which ones belong to you. So they're branding things and they're deciding what those things will mean. And then they're pushing them out through the media, through education, through movies, through entertainment songs, you name it, until the new association is solidified. Meanwhile, you have an internal conflict. You might have gone to school and learned about the etymology, about the root of the word liberal. And so you know it is freedom. And then you go and you look at what that means in the context of society today, and you have an inner conflict. And this is part of the programming through language. It's just one part. It's just one part. The other part is the actual spells that we're casting constantly by saying things that actually mean something different. And for us to really comprehend better what that means is we have to actually study and go back and find what the original definitions of words were. And then we have to sort of begin harmonizing our language again. This is something that I remember my aha moment was some 20 years ago with language. And it was a conversation I had with Christine. And that's something that she had particularly studied from a counselor and psychology standpoint, how language impacts the subconscious, and the subconscious drives 80 to 90% of human behavior. So as soon as she made me aware of how I was using certain words that were detrimental to what I actually wanted to say, I had this aha light bulb moment. And from that moment on, I was studying words. I was studying my language. I was actively observing what words I was using, and I was beginning to change the words to what I really wanted to say. It requires real work, by the way, because language is just programming. And by the way, language in and of itself, and especially the fact that we have so many languages, every country has multiple languages usually. You go to African countries, you go to Asian countries, you go to European countries. There's usually a plethora of ethnic groups in that country. So it's not just one. There's one official language, but then there's smaller languages. Then there's dialects, right? And subdialects. And you would think all of this is just natural cultural progression. No. The concept of dividing the world into so many languages was to divide the tongues. It was so we would not really comprehend what we're saying to each other. It causes all kinds of misunderstandings, right? It causes all kinds of confusions between us. So often wars were started over confusion in language. I really wanted to say this, but because of the barrier that was created artificially between our tongues and our words, we were divided in yet another way. So the written word, for example, is a complete and utter magical invention. And our brain was programmed to believe that when something is written, black ink on white paper, then it is so. It is the law. When we get a letter in the mail. It comes from some office, some government office, some whatever. And what we read, we believe to be the truth that we must follow. We think it is the law because it is written. How many indigenous cultures never had a written language? Does that mean they could not live? Does that mean they couldn't organize? Does that mean they couldn't have truths? Does that mean they couldn't transport and transfer wisdom and folklore and knowledge? Of course they did. They were actually more capable because they remembered everything. They remembered the story. They remembered everything that was important, and they passed it on from one generation to the next through stories and ceremony, all orally. We have lost so many capabilities because of the written word, because we had no more need to remember things. We could always look them up in the book, or now we look them up on the internet. People remember even less. You and I, most of you I know, you still remember your childhood phone number. You still remember your best friend's phone number when you were growing up, or your grandma's phone number, or your family member's phone number. You could still type it in, or you could still do this. Ring, ring. Remember that phone? I do. So, so today, who remembers anyone's phone number? It's all written down. It's all part of a programming. The written word as the law that spells the magic. And this is a big subject. If this is the first time, or even just something you've never really considered, I encourage you to go look. And Jordan Maxwell is a great person to start. Just go and read about the magic, the spells of language and words. It goes much deeper. It goes into the sounds that we use. What does ah mean? What does oh mean? It's difference, right? There's a difference. There's only one sound you can make, by the way, without moving your muscles or moving your tongue. And if you just open your mouth and blow air through your vocal cords, there's only one sound you can make. That's the only sound you can make. Everything else requires some sort of manipulation of the muscles in the mouth and everything. So what does that sound mean? Is that the sound of creation? Is that the sound of the universe? There's so many interesting questions, but I will tell you this. This has practically changed my life. Because language led me to law. And that led me to my understanding, not understanding, understanding of what governs this realm. That's what led me to the understanding that the words and the spells and the written word are literally what perverted humanity into what it is today. And that we have a completely upside down society because of it, because of the written rules that are nothing but spells. And that's why the way language was used, especially if most people really only realize this starting 2020, because for the first time in our history, almost all nations of the world at the same time used the same or very similar language and words, and they used it in a certain pattern. Now, the politicians didn't invent those patterns, right? The doctors didn't invent those patterns. The people that were on TV did not invent those patterns. It was behavioral psychologists and specialists in language and linguistic programming that programmed the sentences and the words and the sequences of sounds that were used in order to have the maximum fear and panic and horror effect inside of everybody that would result in following the guidance in order to avoid the worst. This is how the program was set up. And so this is much more sophisticated than people think. It is not just coming on the air and saying things. They need to say them in a certain way. They need to use certain words because those words have certain meanings that are hidden from the public and they don't know what they really mean. This is a fascinating, fascinating subject. And we also had just made a wonderful new connection. Someone will bring on the channel soon, a doctor that has written great books and studied the effects of language on genetic expression. Very, 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 very powerful. We're going to talk more about this. I just want you to know this is a deep subject, and I encourage everyone to go and start look this up. Your freedom, because language is our main medium of exchange today. It didn't used to be like that. There were times when we were simply mind to mind, and in that there was no confusion, in that there were no lies, in that there was no misunderstandings. Today, because language is our main medium of exchange, we have to become very aware of what we're saying and why certain words can have a very, very strong effect on a person without you even intending it, because we are not always aware of what the word means in the context of that person's life. There's an exercise that we do at our retreats. It's a word association exercise. And what you do is you read one word and you ask everyone to write down their top 5 associations or associated word with that word. For example, you say alcohol, and you only say alcohol, and then you say, please write down the first 5 words that come to mind when you hear the word alcohol. Then you ask relationship, and then you ask trauma, and then you ask therapy, and you let people write down the 5 words that they associate the most with that word. You know what you learn? You learn that most people have very different associations. Some people react positively to a word like therapy. Others react very negatively. Depending on their life experience, the meaning, their own contextual meaning of that word is completely different. So we have to comprehend how complex language is and what it does to us and what it does when we communicate with each other. The truth, however, is that we assign too much meaning to language. Most of our impressions are formed through observation and through our other senses non-verbally. But all contracts, everything that means something within society, is solely associated with black ink on white paper. If there is no black ink on white paper, you have no standing. You have no authority, no jurisdiction. This is all that is. So if we eliminate all black ink and white paper, guess what? We will have literally eliminated all the stupid and useless rules and regulations, but we will not have removed the prison from the minds of the people yet. That can only happen through education. That can only happen through information. And even the word information has to be critically looked at to bring something into a certain form. To be informed, to be in form, right? Knowledge might be better. What we find is that we have to become adults, that we have to study these things, that we have to learn these things and unlearn many things. This is what this time is about. And this is not just important for your life. Because of our comprehension of language, the way we raised our children was different. The way we used certain words were different. But hopefully, it will be much better for the generations to come as they study this and as we improve things. So again, I encourage you, go look up people like Jordan Maxwell and other great teachers that came up and really showed how this magic, this spelling, this manipulation works. A fascinating subject. Also, just wanted to let you know, by the way, almost forgot, we have thank you for all those who are supporting us through various means, but also those who want, if you want to wear your inspiration, if you go to store.theinspiredchannel.com or just go to theinspiredchannel.com and click on our merch store, there's an Easter sale, 11% off for the next 72 hours. Thank you. This supports our work, help pays the salaries of our staff, wonderful people. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon. Much love to you. Many blessings. And may the word be with you.